"You're on stolen land," shrieked the white woman whose feet were touching the very asphalt of everyone else gathered outside the Portland Ice facility. Ah, yes. Stolen land. Stolen land is the left's trump card, their way of holding a moral high ground. No matter how silly their arguments or demands get, the leftists can still hold the position of moral superiority by pointing out that your very existence on this soil carries water for evil. In this video, I offer you a few things to say the next time someone tells you that you're on stolen land. But first, if you're into this kind of content and you're watching this video on YouTube, please give it a like and a share and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on my Substack or reading the accompanying article and you find it has value, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. Alright, let's get into it. First, I'd like to say that I obviously do not condone the way some indigenous peoples were treated by some Europeans. Thankfully, all of those Europeans who mistreated a native were themselves punished for it. In other words, yes, it was bad sometimes, but it was never a free-for-all. And look, shitty people are going to do shitty things sometimes, and we can all agree that it sucks when it happens. But so far as the land being stolen, let's start with geography. Most of what is today North America, that is, the land north of the Rio Grande, was uninhabitable in 1492. The Earth was going through a little ice age at the time. Huge swaths of the United States, well, the present-day United States and present-day Canada, were too bitterly cold to support a large or even a small community. On the opposite side of the climate spectrum, most of what is today the American Southwest and most of northern Mexico are given to deserts. And in South America, only 5 to 6% of the land is arable. As such, the majority of peoples living in the Americas occupied Central America and the Andes Mountains. Beyond that, the vast majorities of peoples were scattered about in communities of maybe a few hundred. When and if contact was made with another tribe, bloodshed was the typical, though certainly not universal, outcome. Now, I'm not excusing any abuses against Native Americans when I say this, but the total population of North America in around 1500 of the Common Era was about 4 million people. To give you a scale, New York City today has double that number. The total population of the Americas, Central, South, and North combined, maybe 15 million people. And the majority of them died from diseases that both the Europeans and themselves knew nothing about. This land, by and large, wasn't really all that occupied. I mean, even today it still isn't. Simply drive through the Midwest or the Southwest. When we see maps like this one, which tend to float around social media every now and then, we should proceed with caution. Even if we were to grant 20 million people, and by the way, that's a number that even the most liberal professor would say is grossly inflated, they still would only occupy a fraction of the land. Now, so far as reservation systems are concerned, yes, they do have their problems. But typically, a conquering civilization doesn't parcel off pieces of its conquered land to give back to the conquered. It's quite rare in history. Usually, all the peoples are killed and or enslaved. And it also seems in some circumstances that maybe, just maybe, some of the peoples preferred Western civilization to their former one. Two anthropologists tell us, a Navajo girl who has been to boarding school for many years usually has no desire to live in a hogan. By the way, that's a Navajo home built of dirt and logs when she marries. But to have a house with a wooden floor, running water, and other conveniences to which she has become accustomed. We should also keep in mind that all of these tribal peoples were very busy colonizing each other long before and after the Europeans arrived. On the map, we see the Iroquois Confederacy occupying a small region in the northeast, when it had in fact emptied much of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, and much of southern Ontario of its former inhabitants. despite the efforts of the French and English to protect many of the Iroquois victims. This map does not show the conquests and colonizations of the Iroquois Confederacy any more than it shows the colonizations and conquests of every other indigenous tribe of the Americas. It'd be a very bloody map if it did. Europeans only did what indigenous peoples had been doing for centuries: conquered the land. Then there's the issue with land that was legally bought through treaty. In 1848, the Mexican-American War ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Therein, the United States purchased California, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and parts of Wyoming, Oklahoma, and Kansas. That land, in the very least, cannot be both bought and stolen at the same time. And as far as concerns the Louisiana Purchase, which greatly expanded the American territory, well, we made that deal with the French. Take it up with them. Let's now travel south of the Rio Grande. The Aztecs offer a fantastically grotesque example of what happened when they encountered new tribes and relations went south. Some Aztec emperors like Tizoc and Moctezuma II were exceptionally bloodthirsty. Post-colonialists often point to the Aztecs as evidence for an indigenous genocide. However, the fall of the Aztecs was less an exercise in genocide and more the unification of numerous abused peoples revolting against their oppressor. The Aztec elites eagerly entertained in war, torture, human sacrifice, and cannibalism of the surrounding peoples. Cortez's best military strategy was not on the battlefield, but in the way he persuaded the peoples that had been abused by the Aztecs to gather together to take them down. By the time the arrows started to fly and gunpowder filled the air, Cortez's indigenous allies outnumbered his own Spanish soldiers by the tens of thousands. If a genocide took place against the Aztecs, then the majority of the executioners were other indigenous peoples taking revenge against them. In that way, Cortez stopped, not started, a genocide. That is, the genocide that was being committed by the Aztecs. The fall of Moctezuma saved countless indigenous slaves of the Aztec court who otherwise would have been tortured, sacrificed, and then cannibalized. We also see an interesting quandary in this manner. According to Team Decolonize Everything, First Nations peoples knew nothing of property rights, which is an invention of those evil, racist Europeans. That is almost true. Obviously, one hunter knew his bow from his companion's bow. Personal property was, of course, well understood, but property rights referring to the land were a little more nuanced. Sure, peoples near large bodies of water, like the Mississippians among others, and/or who had established impressive empires, the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, recognized the land as theirs. But the majority? They were nomadic hunter-gatherers. It's highly questionable whether they would have recognized the land as theirs. Without property rights, you either steal the land from weaker peoples, or you lose the land to stronger peoples. So what should we do about this? Well, since the land is believed to be stolen, it must be returned. Or so says the white woman shrieking in everyone's face. And I can guarantee you she never sought to rectify this problem by giving her house, car, and savings over to an indigenous family and then returning to her ancestral homeland. Until that day comes, her land acknowledgments remain mere expressions of self-centered, virtue-signaling meaninglessness. But let's play along anyway. Admittedly, I'm a little curious as to whom the United States government returns the land. As one of many examples, the US government could give the land back to the last indigenous tribe to occupy the northwestern area of Texas, the Comanche. But then what do the government land returners say to the Apache, from whom the Comanche invaded, murdered, enslaved, and colonized the land? Does the land go back to the Comanche or the Apache? Now, some might say that it should go back to the Apache as the original heirs to the land. But you see, there's a hiccup. The Apache invaded, murdered, enslaved, and stole the land from the Pueblo people, who earlier had stolen it from the Plainview people, who even earlier had taken it from the Folsom people. Such progressions of intertribal warfare and colonization can be found scattered all over the Americas. So my question is this: if the United States government was to return the land, exactly which invading, murdering, enslaving, colonizing indigenous group should receive any given plot? Such an exercise in decolonization raises not only coarse truths, but also pressing questions. If we decolonize the land, does that mean we also uproot all of those highways that now connect the farthest reaches of the plains, making long-distance travel safer and more convenient? And what about all those houses, restaurants, hospitals, libraries, food storage facilities, farms, homeless shelters, cell phone towers, plumbing and sewer systems, air conditioning, central heating, food banks, toilet paper, pharmacies shelved with modern medicine, grocery stores, and other symbols of white supremacy? Surely they must all be taken down so as not to insult whatever colonizing, murdering, enslaving First Nations group to which the United States returns the land. Well, my friends, thank you for coming to my Tom Talk. Until we meet again, you free your mind by using your brain. Peace. To use, wait, sorry. I'm sorry. I took amanita muscaria. I had done an earlier shot of this, and I didn't like how, and then I ate the mushrooms, and I didn't like how it came out, so now I'm doing it again, so that's where we're at. Anyway.